Listen closely. Control your emotions, or they will control your destiny. Most people are prisoners of their own reactions. They explode when challenged, collapse when criticized, and chase validation from people who don't even respect them. That ends now. Emotional mastery isn't about suppressing your feelings. It's about commanding them. This is the skill that separates the fragile from the focused. You want freedom? You want peace? You want power? Then learn to control what controls you. This is where that training begins. Chapter 1. The mind reacts. The master responds. Most people don't live their lives. They react to them. They're tossed around by emotion, trapped in defense, and driven by impulse. They call it passion. They call it personality. But what it really is lack of control. Every day, the world throws sparks at you. Criticism, chaos, confusion. And every day, most people let those sparks ignite wildfires inside them. They yell. They panic. They spiral. And then they wonder why they never feel peace. Here's the truth. The difference between a weak mind and a strong mind is 1 second. 1 second between stimulus and response. 1 second between emotion and reaction. That's where mastery lives. You have a choice. Every single time. You can react like everyone else, or you can respond like a master. And that's the key. You have a choice before every response. That's your power. But most people give that choice away. They hand it over to emotion. They hand it over to impulse. They hand it over to people who know exactly how to trigger them. Every reaction you give away is power lost. Every moment you rush to defend yourself, to explain yourself, to prove yourself, that's energy gone. That's self-control traded for self-destruction. You need to understand something. Control isn't built in calm. It's built in conflict. You don't master your emotions in meditation. You master them in the moment when someone disrespects you, when life blindsides you, when things go wrong and your first instinct is to explode. That's your test. That's your training ground. When you pause, even for one breath, you take back the throne. You become the observer, not the victim. Because mastery doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop obeying every feeling. Remember this. Your emotions want to move you. They want to push you to react, defend, attack. But you are not a puppet. You are the one holding the strings, if you choose to be. And that's what separates the ordinary from the disciplined. The ordinary person lives in reaction mode, always one insult away from rage, one rejection away from collapse. The disciplined person sees it coming. They breathe. They assess. They choose. That's power. You don't need to respond to everything. You don't need to fix every misunderstanding. You don't need to fight every battle. Sometimes, silence is the loudest response. You have to stop rewarding chaos with your attention. You have to stop giving emotional energy to people who thrive on getting a rise out of you. Your calm frustrates them. Your composure disarms them. Because when you stop reacting, you become unpredictable. And when you're unpredictable, you're in control. Let me make this simple. If you're reactive, you're easy to manipulate. If you're patient, you're impossible to control. That's why slow is strong. Delay is dominance. Anyone can react fast, but the master waits. They think, they feel, then they act with intention. That's what it means to respond. Response is measured. Response is deliberate. Response is strength under command. Let me give you something practical. Next time you feel triggered, stop. Literally stop. Don't text back. Don't explain. Don't defend. Just breathe. Because that pause, that single pause, is the separation between who you've been and who you're becoming. You'll feel it. The pull to react. The urge to prove. The impulse to speak first. That's the moment you train. That's the moment you take your power back. Emotional mastery starts small. It's not built in a single act of control. It's built in hundreds of moments of pause. Every time you choose silence over reaction, awareness over impulse, clarity over chaos, you train the mind. And the mind begins to obey you. See, most people train their bodies. Few ever train their minds. But the mind is the true muscle of discipline. When you learn to control the reaction, you begin to command reality. You stop living on autopilot. You stop letting life push your buttons. You become the one who sets the tone, the pace, the energy. You can't change the world around you, but you can change how you respond to it. And that's everything. Because emotional control isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about strategic energy management. You conserve your energy for what matters. You stop leaking power through meaningless reactions. You stay focused on what moves your mission forward. The truth is, the calm mind always wins. Because calm minds make clear decisions. And clear decisions build strong results. You're not trying to become emotionless. You're learning to become emotionally intelligent. You use emotion as data, not direction. You let feelings inform you, not rule you. That's why awareness is the foundation. You can't control what you don't notice. So, learn to notice. Learn to observe without judgment. When you feel anger, don't suppress it. Study it. When you feel anxiety, don't run from it. Question it. Ask yourself, why am I reacting this way? What story am I telling myself right now? Because the truth is, your reactions aren't caused by the world. They're caused by your interpretations. Change the meaning, and the emotion loses control over you. That's the discipline. That's the edge. And when you build that kind of awareness, you stop being pushed around by circumstances. You start steering your own life. You have to remember, every reaction has a cost, and every pause has a payoff. You can be right, or you can be in control. You can be emotional, or you can be effective. Choose wisely, because every time you react impulsively, you're proving you're still a student. But every time you pause, you're proving you're becoming the master. That's what this chapter is about. That's what emotional mastery begins with. The space between reaction and response. When you claim that space, you reclaim your life. You reclaim your focus. You reclaim your power. That's how warriors move. Calm, measured, intentional. They don't react to everything. They don't chase validation. They observe. They adapt. They respond. And that's exactly what you're becoming. A master of your own mind. You've learned to pause. You've learned to see clearly. Now, it's time to go deeper. Because awareness is the first step, but mastery demands detachment. You can't control your emotions if you're still worshiping them. You mastered your reaction. Now, let's destroy your dependency. Chapter 2. Stop worshiping your feelings. Let's get something straight. Your emotions are not your gods. They're not meant to be obeyed. They're signals, not sentences. Feelings are data, not direction. That's where most people fail. They treat their emotions like orders instead of information. They feel tired, so they quit. They feel angry, so they lash out. They feel uncertain, so they freeze. Then they justify it. I was just being real. No, you were being reactive. You weren't being real. You were being ruled. Your emotions are loud, but they aren't leaders. You are. And that's the key. You have a choice. Every single time a feeling rises, you can either obey it or observe it. You can either bow to it or break it down. That's what separates the disciplined from the emotional. The disciplined use emotion. The emotional are used by emotion. You can't master your life if you can't master your moods. You can't make consistent progress if you're controlled by inconsistency inside yourself. That's why emotional discipline is rare, because it requires confrontation. It requires you to say, I feel this, but I'm not following it. Let me tell you something real. You don't have to feel motivated to take action. You don't have to feel confident to perform. You don't have to feel ready to begin. You just have to execute. Because it's not about emotion, it's about execution. You think the elite perform because they feel like it? No. They perform because they've trained their standards to override their feelings. They've built a code. And that code doesn't bend every time emotion shouts louder than reason. You have to do the same. You have to build a personal system stronger than your moods. Your mood changes. Your mission doesn't. That's the foundation of emotional mastery, detachment. You separate how you feel from what you do. You stop letting your inner weather control your external actions. You can feel tired and still train. You can feel angry and still stay calm. You can feel anxious and still execute the plan. That's discipline. That's what separates those who want results from those who chase relief. Most people are emotional worshippers. They check in with their feelings before they move. They need emotional permission before they take action. And when the emotion isn't there, they stall. They wait. They delay. And then they wonder why nothing changes. You don't need permission from your feelings. You need obedience from your discipline. You're not here to feel like doing it. You're here to do it anyway. Because when you act in spite of emotion, emotion loses its grip. You teach your nervous system who's in charge. That's what real freedom is, when you stop being dictated by inner chaos. When you can say, I feel anger, but I'll respond with logic. I feel fear, but I'll move with courage. I feel doubt, but I'll still execute. That's what mental toughness is. Not the absence of emotion, the control of it. You have to stop glorifying feelings as truth. Just because you feel it doesn't mean it's real. Just because you feel like quitting doesn't mean you should. Just because you feel lost doesn't mean you're off course. Emotions are temporary. Decisions are permanent. Never make a permanent decision based on a temporary feeling. You want to know how to grow up mentally? Stop asking, how do I feel about this? Start asking, what does my discipline demand right now? That's maturity. That's power. You've got to build a mental gap, a separation between emotion and execution. Because emotion wants reaction. Discipline demands response. It's the same energy, but one builds you and the other breaks you. You have a choice. Every time you're emotional, you can either collapse or command. And that choice defines everything. Stop waiting to feel better. Start acting better. Because action changes emotion, not the other way around. When you move, your state shifts. When you do the work, your feelings follow. That's the formula. That's the truth most people miss. You'll never feel your way into discipline. You discipline your way into better feelings. So the next time you wake up tired, move anyway. The next time fear whispers, act anyway. The next time doubt floods your mind, follow your standards, not your state. That's how you break the emotional loop that's been running your life. Most people build their entire identity around their emotions. They say, I'm an anxious person. I'm an angry person. No, you're a person who's practiced reacting. You've trained your emotions to lead. Now it's time to untrain that. Now it's time to take the throne back. You can feel emotion, but never feed it with action. You can notice it, but never kneel to it. Because the moment you start obeying emotion, discipline dies. And when discipline dies, direction dies with it. That's why most people stay stuck, not because they lack opportunity, but because they worship emotion over execution. They let their inner state dictate their outer reality. But you're done with that. You're rewriting the code. From this point forward, feelings don't decide. Standards do. That's how you build consistency. That's how you build respect. For yourself, for your mission, for your future. You have to say it to yourself. I'm not ruled by what I feel. I'm ruled by what I decide. Say it again. I'm not ruled by what I feel. I'm ruled by what I decide. That's your mantra now. That's your anchor. You'll still feel doubt. You'll still feel fear. But they'll stop steering the wheel. Because you'll remember, they're just data. Information, not commands. And when you live from that truth, you become unstoppable. Because no emotion can derail a person who acts on principle. You'll frustrate people who can't control you. You'll confuse those who try to trigger you. And you'll command respect. Not because you talk about power, but because you embody it. Emotional detachment doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. It means you see reality without distortion. You move from discipline, not drama. You lead yourself instead of chasing validation. You stop chasing motivation. You start chasing mastery. That's the transition you're in now. From reaction to control. From emotion to execution. From chaos to clarity. Because your emotions are not your enemy, your obedience to them is. So, remember this. Feelings are loud, but they aren't leaders. You are. And that's the power you reclaim today. You've learned not to worship emotion. Now it's time to channel it. Because power isn't in avoiding emotion. It's in transforming it. You've taken your feelings off the throne. Now, let's put focus in their place. Chapter 3. Detachment is not cold. It's control. Most people get this wrong. They think detachment means you stop caring. That you walk around emotionless, disconnected, robotic. They couldn't be more mistaken. Detachment doesn't mean indifference. It means stability. It means your emotions don't own you. It means you see clearly because chaos can't drag you into its storm. That's the key. You stop drowning in every wave that hits you. You become the ocean itself. Still, powerful, unmoved. Detachment is not cold. It's control. When you're detached, you stop confusing reaction with strength. You stop mistaking obsession for care. You stop letting everything outside you dictate everything inside you. You have a choice. You always have a choice. You can care deeply and still stay composed. You can feel everything without falling apart. That's real maturity. Emotion without attachment. Let me tell you something. Attachment is the root of most suffering. Not love. Not failure. Not loss. Attachment. The need to own, to hold, to control what was never yours to begin with. You cling to outcomes. You cling to people. You cling to expectations. And when reality doesn't match your grip, you break. But when you practice detachment, you stop chasing control because you become control. You stop begging for stability because you are stability. That's what detachment really is. It's emotional power. It's clarity under pressure. It's strength that doesn't need to shout. When you need nothing, you control everything. Read that again. When you need nothing, you control everything. Because need is weakness. Need is dependence. Need is emotional debt. And every time you let someone or something hold that power, you lose leverage over your own life. But when you detach, you take the power back. You stop saying, I need this to feel good, and start saying, I decide how I feel. That's control. That's freedom. You don't detach from life. You detach from illusion. The illusion that you can control every outcome. The illusion that people owe you consistency. The illusion that peace depends on everything going right. It doesn't. Peace depends on you, not them, not it, not someday, not something. You. That's the secret. You don't need the world to calm down for you to be calm. You don't need everyone to act right for you to stay grounded. Because your peace isn't situational. It's internal. That's what emotional detachment gives you. It's not withdrawal. It's power in stillness. It's calm in motion. You stop reacting to every noise. You start choosing what's worth your energy. You start deciding what deserves your attention and what doesn't. That's how you conserve power. That's how you protect your mental energy. Because not every battle deserves a warrior. Here's the truth. Not everything needs your reaction. Sometimes silence is the strongest move you can make. Sometimes walking away is louder than arguing. Sometimes letting go is the most disciplined thing you'll ever do. Detachment isn't running away from emotion. It's reining it in. It's knowing when to release, when to hold, when to act, when to pause. That's mastery. When you're attached, you panic when things go wrong. When you're detached, you adapt. You say, okay, that didn't work. What's next? No drama. No collapse. No chaos. That's what detachment gives you. Options. You stop being emotionally paralyzed by problems. You stop taking everything personally. You start turning setbacks into feedback. That's the transformation. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? You start asking, what is this teaching me? That's growth. That's detachment in action. Because when you're emotionally attached to everything, you can't see the lesson. You're too busy defending your feelings to see the truth. But when you step back, when you detach, you gain perspective. You gain awareness. You gain control. You're not cold. You're clear. You're not distant. You're deliberate. That's what emotional mastery looks like. That's what composure feels like. You can care without craving. You can love without losing yourself. You can pursue without desperation. That's balance. That's power. But it requires practice. You have to train detachment the same way you train your body. Repetition, awareness, boundaries. You have to ask yourself, what am I attached to that's draining my peace? It might be a person. It might be a goal. It might be an image of who you think you should be. You have to loosen your grip. Because the tighter you cling, the faster things slip away. When you're detached, you can still give your best, but you're not broken when the outcome doesn't match your expectation. You stay stable through success and failure. You remain grounded in both praise and criticism. That's the true mark of mastery. Emotional neutrality. You don't get too high when things go well, and you don't fall apart when they don't. You ride the wave. You don't drown in it. And the irony is this. When you detach from outcomes, you actually perform better. You think clearer. You execute sharper. Because your energy isn't leaking through anxiety and overthinking. That's why detachment is strength, not coldness. It's power under control. It's emotion under command. It's confidence without noise. And here's what you'll notice. When you stop chasing, life starts aligning. When you stop begging, respect starts rising. When you stop needing, you start attracting. Because neediness repels. Peace attracts. Detachment radiates confidence. And people can feel it. They sense that you're not desperate for validation, attention, or control. And that makes you magnetic. You become the calm in the room full of chaos. You become the still point in a spinning world. You become power, quiet, collected, and unshakable. That's what you're building. That's what detachment creates. Not distance, but dominance. Because you no longer chase control. You are control. Remember this phrase. Detachment is peace in motion. Say it again. Detachment is peace in motion. You're not numb. You're just no longer enslaved to every emotion that passes through. You're free, internally free. And that's the highest form of emotional power there is. You have a choice every day. You can let the world pull your strings, or you can cut the strings and stand tall. You can live reacting, or you can live responding. That's the key. Stop mistaking chaos for passion. Stop confusing obsession for love. Stop believing that control comes from holding tighter. It comes from letting go. You'll still care. You'll still feel. But you'll lead those emotions, not follow them. That's not coldness. That's clarity. That's composure. That's control. You've learned to separate your peace from the noise. Now it's time to separate your focus from distraction. Because the next step of mastery isn't just inner calm, it's pure direction. Chapter 4. Your triggers are teachers. Let's be honest. You think you're calm until someone hits that nerve. You think you're healed until someone says the wrong thing. You think you're in control until that trigger shows up and pulls you apart from the inside. Here's the truth. Every trigger is a teacher. Every emotional reaction you try to hide is showing you exactly where you still need work. It's not the world that's attacking you. It's your wounds asking for attention. You have to stop running from your triggers. You have to start studying them. Because what offends you controls you. That's not just a catchy phrase. It's a law of emotional power. Whatever gets a reaction out of you owns you. And the moment you understand that, you start winning the inner war. You have a choice. You can keep letting your triggers drive your behavior, or you can use them as your training ground. That's the key, turning reaction into reflection. Most people avoid their triggers. They block, escape, or lash out. They say things like, "I don't want to deal with that," or "that person brings out the worst in me." But the truth is, that person didn't bring it out. It was already there. Your triggers don't create weakness. They expose it. They're mirrors, not enemies. Think about that. Every time you feel anger, jealousy, insecurity, shame, your subconscious is handing you a message. It's saying, "Look here. There's pain that hasn't been processed." It's saying, "This is the spot that still owns space inside you." But most people don't listen. They drown it out. They project it onto others. They blame, deflect, or distract. They run from the mirror instead of learning from the reflection. You can't grow if you keep hiding from the parts of yourself that still need healing. You can't master your emotions if you refuse to face what activates them. Emotional mastery starts with emotional awareness. You can't control what you don't observe. You can't rise above what you won't acknowledge. So start noticing. When you feel that rise in your chest, pause. When your pulse spikes, pause. When you feel the urge to clap back, defend, or withdraw, pause. That pause is your power. That's the training moment. That's the difference between reacting and responding. Ask yourself, what exactly am I feeling right now? Why does this bother me so much? What is this situation showing me about myself? You'll be shocked by how much clarity that brings. Because triggers aren't random. They're precise. They point to patterns that have been running your life. Maybe you get triggered by rejection. That's not about the other person. That's about the version of you that still feels unworthy. Maybe you get triggered by criticism. That's not about their tone. That's about your ego's addiction to approval. Maybe you get triggered by being ignored. That's not about them. That's about your need to be seen because you haven't fully seen yourself. Do you see the pattern? Your triggers are clues. They show you exactly where to focus your self-work. They are not curses. They are coordinates. That's emotional intelligence in practice. Seeing pain as information. Pain is not punishment. Pain is feedback. Pain says, you're still attached. Pain says, you still care about the wrong thing. Pain says, you still have healing to do. And here's the good news. Once you identify the source, you can disarm the reaction. You can face the feeling without acting it out. You can observe it without obeying it. That's real power. It's not about pretending you're unbothered. That's denial. It's about being fully aware, fully calm, and fully in control. That's discipline. Because triggers don't disappear when you ignore them. They amplify. What you suppress becomes stronger. What you face becomes weaker. You want to train your mind like a soldier. When you feel the emotional hit, you breathe. You center. You analyze. You learn. That's how warriors of the mind operate. You don't need their permission to feel calm. You don't need their apology to move forward. You decide how you'll respond. And here's a truth most people never realize. The same situation that triggers one person can empower another. The same insult that destroys one ego can strengthen another mind. It's not the event. It's your interpretation. It's not about emotion. It's about discipline. That's the difference between people who grow and people who stay stuck. The ones who grow turn every trigger into a lesson. The ones who stay stuck keep blaming the world for poking their wounds. Your goal isn't to never be triggered. Your goal is to never be controlled by your triggers again. Let the world test you, and stay centered anyway. Let people misunderstand you, and stay composed anyway. Let the noise rise, and choose silence anyway. That's mastery. When you can be provoked and still stay calm, you're untouchable. That's what strength looks like. Quiet control. When you can listen to criticism without collapsing, you've evolved. When you can feel insulted and not retaliate, you've leveled up. Because every time you stay calm under pressure, you train your nervous system to obey you. You're rewiring your emotional response. You're conditioning control. That's how you become emotionally unshakable. Not by pretending you don't feel, but by proving you can feel without falling. You have a choice. Every trigger is an invitation. React or rise. Blame or build. Collapse or control. And the more you rise, the fewer things can move you. That's the paradox of growth. The stronger you become internally, the quieter your external reactions get. You stop needing to prove your composure. You start living it. You stop defending your peace. You start embodying it. That's the real flex, not outrage, not arguments, not emotional explosions. Stillness. Stillness that comes from understanding yourself so deeply that nothing outside can shake you inside. That's emotional dominance. That's what mastery feels like. You start to welcome the triggers. You start to say, good, another test, another opportunity to train. That's when you know you've grown. That's when you've moved from emotion to evolution. Your triggers aren't punishments. They're the curriculum of your self-mastery. They're the fire that forges your control. If you can stay centered when the heat rises, you've already won. Remember, every reaction you don't give is energy you keep. Every insult you don't absorb is peace you protect. Every emotional hit you breathe through is progress you've made. That's the discipline. That's the game. And it's one you can win every single day. So stop avoiding what triggers you. Face it. Study it. Learn from it. Because your triggers aren't the enemy. Your ignorance of them is. And once you understand that, no one can use them against you again. You've faced your triggers. You've learned from your pain. Now it's time to turn that awareness into real composure. To stop talking and start showing your emotional control in action. Chapter 5. Never argue with chaos. Some people don't want peace. They want control. They don't want resolution. They want reaction. And the moment you react, they win. You have to understand this. Not everyone is looking for understanding. Some people thrive on chaos. They need drama the way disciplined people need purpose. They feed on your attention. And when you argue with them, you're giving them exactly what they came for, your energy. You don't owe them that. You don't owe anyone your reaction. That's the key. Every time you defend, justify, or explain yourself to chaos, you lower your frequency. You meet them where they are, instead of standing where you belong. That's how strong people become drained people. Not from effort, but from engagement with what never deserved their time. Let's get one thing straight. You don't argue with noise. You silence it with consistency. You don't explain peace to chaos. You embody it. Because arguing with chaos is like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. It only grows. It only spreads. You end up burned, frustrated, and wondering how you got dragged into something so small. You have a choice. Every time someone tries to pull you into their emotional storm, you can step in or stand still. You can match their dysfunction, or you can maintain your direction. That's discipline. It's not about winning the argument. It's about refusing to step into the arena. You don't win by being louder. You win by being quieter. Because silence is strength in motion. It's not passive. It's powerful. You see, emotional intelligence isn't about having the best comeback. It's about not needing one. It's about walking away while they're still trying to figure out why they can't get under your skin. That's the moment you reclaim your peace. When you stop feeding energy to chaos, you starve it. When you stop responding to manipulation, you expose it. When you stop engaging with drama, you rise above it. But here's the problem. Most people think silence means weakness. They think walking away means losing. That's ego talking. That's insecurity pretending to be strength. Real strength doesn't need validation. Real power doesn't perform for approval. You don't need their permission to disengage. You don't need to prove you're calm. You live it. Listen carefully. The calmest person in the room always has the most control. Always. Because when you're calm, you can see what chaos can't. You can see the manipulation. You can see the trap. You can see the energy exchange happening right in front of you, and you refuse to participate. That's mastery. That's emotional dominance. And it's built through one simple principle. Never argue with chaos. Chaos doesn't listen. It performs. It doesn't want truth. It wants reaction. And if you take the bait, you become part of the show. Don't perform. Observe. Don't defend. Decide. You have a choice in every encounter. Mirror the madness or maintain your mastery. That's the difference between average and disciplined. Average people react. Disciplined people redirect. Here's what emotional discipline looks like in real life. Someone insults you, you breathe. Someone lies about you, you stay silent. Someone disrespects you, you don't explain, you adjust. That's control. Because here's the truth. Your response teaches people how to treat you. If you argue with chaos, you teach it that you can be moved. If you stay centered, you teach it that you can't. And once people realize they can't provoke you, they lose interest in trying. That's how you win. Not by conquering chaos, but by outlasting it. Chaos burns hot, but it burns out fast. Your calm is eternal. Your composure is infinite. You just have to stay still long enough to let the storm pass. You don't need to fight to prove your strength. Stillness is proof. Composure is proof. That's what the undisciplined can't understand. They think volume equals power. They think being loud means being right. They don't realize the calmest person in the room already won. You don't have to fight every battle. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. Some invitations are traps designed to drain your energy. Your discipline is your filter. Ask yourself before you respond. Is this worth my energy? Is this worth my peace? Is this worth my time? If the answer is no, silence is your answer. Because silence isn't empty. It's loaded with power. It says, I see your chaos, and I choose not to join it. It says, I won't lower my vibration just to prove a point. It says, I control myself, and that's all that matters. You have to train your emotions like a warrior trains his reflexes. You have to make calm automatic. You have to make peace your default. That's how you move through life unshaken. That's how you become the storm instead of being destroyed by it. You don't win by reacting faster. You win by not reacting at all. That's the discipline most people never master. Because chaos is everywhere. Online, in relationships, at work, in the world. But you don't have to participate in it. You can be in the middle of the noise and still be silent inside. That's the kind of peace no one can take from you. So next time someone tries to bait you, remember this. You don't owe them your reaction. Your energy is expensive. Don't spend it on chaos. Smile. Stay calm. Move forward. Let your consistency speak louder than their confusion. That's emotional control. That's quiet dominance. You don't prove your power. You preserve it. Because arguing with chaos is like shadowboxing. You tire yourself out fighting what was never real. Let fools argue. Let noise make noise. You focus on building what lasts. Your calm is your weapon. Your silence is your shield. Your composure is your crown. Remember, you don't win by fighting louder. You win by staying unbothered. That's the key. Every reaction you withhold is strength multiplied. Every argument you walk away from is peace protected. Every moment you choose silence over chaos, you prove mastery. You're not avoiding conflict. You're choosing control. You're not weak, you're wise. Because the goal isn't to win the argument. The goal is to win your peace. And once you understand that, no one can pull you back into their storm again. You've learned how to walk away. You've learned how to master silence. Now it's time to go deeper, to strengthen the mind that commands that silence. Chapter 6. Pressure is the test of peace. Everyone looks disciplined when life is calm. Everyone sounds wise when nothing is going wrong. But the truth is this: peace means nothing until it's tested. Emotional control doesn't prove itself in comfort. It proves itself in crisis. Anyone can look composed when the world is gentle. But who are you when everything falls apart? Who are you when the plan collapses? Who are you when the people you counted on disappear? That's when your training speaks. That's when your discipline is revealed. Pressure doesn't create weakness. It exposes it. Pressure doesn't build character. It reveals it. That's the key. You say you're calm, but calm isn't proven in still water. It's proven in storms. It's proven when your pulse rises, your plans fail, and your patience is tested. Because in those moments, emotion screams for control. It demands reaction. And that's when you find out who's in charge. You or your impulses. You have a choice. Every single time life squeezes you, you get to decide, do I panic or do I perform? Do I let pressure pull me apart, or do I let it forge me? That's the decision that separates warriors from wanderers. Most people crumble under stress because they never trained for it. They chase comfort their whole lives and then call themselves strong. But strength isn't built in comfort. It's built in conflict. You train peace under pressure. That's how elite soldiers do it. That's how world-class performers do it. They don't wait for calm to practice calm. They create calm in chaos. They breathe when everyone else breaks. They observe when everyone else overreacts. They move with precision when everyone else is paralyzed. That's mastery. That's emotional control in motion. And it doesn't happen by accident. You have to rehearse it. You have to train it into your nervous system. You have to make peace your default reaction, not panic. Because under pressure, you don't rise to the occasion. You fall to your level of training. That's the key. So ask yourself, what are you training for? Are you rehearsing composure or chaos? Are you building the reflex to breathe or the habit to break? Every difficult moment is a test. And you don't get to choose when the test comes. But you can choose how ready you are. Here's the truth. Pressure doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about your excuses. It doesn't care about your comfort zone. Pressure only responds to preparation. And that's why your habits matter more than your emotions. When life hits you hard, you won't think, you'll react. And that reaction will be a reflection of your discipline. That's why discipline isn't punishment, it's protection. You're not training for peace. You're training under peace, so you don't lose it when chaos comes. Pressure exposes pretenders. It separates those who talk about calm from those who live it. Because when life turns up the heat, fake peace melts. Real peace solidifies. Real peace gets colder, clearer, calmer. That's what you must build. Peace that pressure can't penetrate. Think about this. When a fighter enters the ring, his heart is pounding, adrenaline surging, noise all around. But the best fighters look relaxed. Why? Because they trained for the chaos. They rehearsed the rhythm of calm in the middle of madness. They built control into their reflexes. So when the pressure arrives, they don't think, they flow. That's what you must do. You have to breathe through the blows. You have to focus through the fear. You have to anchor yourself in discipline while emotion screams for control. Because the moment you panic, you give away your power. The moment you lose composure, you lose clarity. And without clarity, every decision becomes chaos. You don't need to avoid pressure. You need to respect it. You need to see it as the truth teller it is. Pressure shows you exactly where you're weak, so you can strengthen it. It shows you what triggers you, so you can master it. It shows you who you really are, not who you pretend to be. When everything is calm, anyone can be composed. But when the storm hits, only the trained stay steady. That's what emotional mastery looks like. Not avoiding chaos, but remaining unshaken within it. You have to stop saying, "I'll be calm when life slows down." Life won't slow down. You have to learn to slow yourself down. That's emotional control. That's the discipline you build in small, quiet moments, so it's there when everything goes loud. Every time you feel pressure rising, stop, breathe, feel it without feeding it. Observe it without obeying it. Then act with precision. That's the practice. The undisciplined let emotion drive them off course. The disciplined use emotion as information. It's not about eliminating feeling. It's about mastering response. That's the difference between reaction and leadership. Pressure doesn't destroy the disciplined. It defines them. Because they've learned how to use pressure, how to let it sharpen their focus, not shatter it. You want to know who you really are? Watch how you act when nothing goes your way. That's the real you. Not the version with affirmations and motivation. The version in the storm. That's the test. So here's what you do. Next time stress hits, don't run. Don't react. Don't collapse into emotion. Pause. Observe. Breathe until the mind slows down and your awareness returns. That's where your control lives, in the pause between emotion and action. In that pause, you reclaim your authority. In that pause, you turn chaos into clarity. In that pause, you become untouchable. Pressure isn't your enemy. It's your mirror. It's showing you what needs work. It's showing you where you still rely on emotion instead of discipline. It's showing you what kind of soldier you are when the war is real. You have a choice. You can see pressure as punishment, or you can see it as training. You can collapse, or you can concentrate. You can react, or you can respond. Every moment of tension is a chance to practice mastery. That's the path. You're not being tested to break. You're being tested to build. Every challenge is a call to strengthen your calm. Every setback is a signal to reinforce your structure. Pressure doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to show you that you're built for more. It comes to reveal that the peace inside you is more powerful than the chaos around you. That's the key. Pressure is not the enemy of peace. It's the test of it. And if you can stay still in the storm, you can walk through fire and not be burned. Remember this. Anyone can look peaceful when it's easy, but true peace is proven under fire. So when the pressure comes, welcome it. Smile at it. Because now, you get to find out what you're really made of. You've learned how to stand calm in the storm. But calm isn't enough. Next, you'll learn how to command your focus. Chapter 7. Patience is the weapon of the wise. Everyone wants results. No one wants to wait. That's why most people lose. Impulse destroys progress. Discipline builds it. And the bridge between the two is patience. Patience isn't passive. It's power under control. It's the ability to hold your ground when every part of you wants to rush. That's the key. You think speed wins. It doesn't. Clarity wins. Timing wins. Endurance wins. The world worships movement, but the wise understand momentum. They know when to strike and when to stay still. You have to understand this. Not every opportunity deserves your action. Not every emotion deserves your reaction. You don't have to move just because you feel pressure. You don't have to speak just because you feel silence. That's emotional control. That's what mastery looks like. Power often looks like doing nothing. The undisciplined confuse noise for progress. They chase every impulse. They swing wildly at everything that moves. And then they wonder why they're exhausted and empty. But the wise, they wait. They observe. They measure. They let chaos expose itself. Because time always tells the truth. And patience always reveals power. You have a choice. You can react, or you can respond. You can rush, or you can rise. You can be emotional, or you can be strategic. That's the choice that separates the weak from the wise. The truth is, most people ruin their progress because they can't handle the silence between effort and result. They panic in the pause. They think waiting means failure. But the waiting is the work. Every seed needs stillness before it breaks through the soil. Every champion must train in private before victory is seen in public. Every strong mind learns to delay gratification, because patience is leverage. Wait longer. See deeper. Strike smarter. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Stillness is not submission. It's strategy. You're not backing down. You're building pressure. You're letting the moment mature before you move. Think about this. The lion doesn't chase everything that moves. It watches, it studies, it waits, and when it moves, it doesn't miss. That's patience in motion. That's what you must learn to do. You don't need to be everywhere. You don't need to respond to everything. You don't need to fight every battle. You just need to be precise. And precision requires patience. Every time you act out of impulse, you trade power for panic. Every time you move without thinking, you give control to emotion. And every time you lose patience, you start over. That's the trap. You have to train your emotions to wait. You have to discipline your impulses to pause. Because that pause, that single breath before you act, that's where strength is born. Stillness builds stability. Stability builds strategy. Strategy builds success. That's the sequence. That's the process the impatient never master. Look around. The undisciplined world is loud, reactive, impulsive. People move without thinking, post without reflecting, speak without listening. They're addicted to immediacy and allergic to patience. But if you can be the one who waits, the one who observes, the one who plans while others panic, you win. Because patience is the weapon of the wise. Understand this. Life isn't testing your speed. It's testing your stability. It's asking, can you stay centered while everything around you spins? That's the real exam. When things don't happen fast enough, that's when people start breaking promises. That's when they abandon routines. That's when they settle for average. But that's also when the disciplined separate themselves. Because patience isn't about sitting still. It's about staying consistent. You can't control the pace of the outcome, but you can control the pace of your effort. That's where power lives, in steady movement, not frantic motion. You don't need their permission to take your time. You don't need their approval to move slowly. Let them rush. Let them burn out. You're building something that lasts. And what lasts always takes time. Patience isn't for the lazy. It's for the relentless. It's for those who know that quick results fade and slow progress compounds. It's for those who understand that every delay is developing depth. You have a choice, to chase what's urgent or to commit to what's important. Most chase urgency. The wise commit to importance. That's why the wise win. When you feel the urge to react, pause. When you feel the need to speak, breathe. When you feel like quitting, wait. Because in that extra moment, your clarity returns. And clarity is what emotion steals. Patience keeps you aligned with purpose. It reminds you that your mission doesn't change just because the world is loud. You don't adjust your values to match the noise. You let the noise adjust to your silence. That's what emotional control looks like. That's what self-mastery feels like. You must stop treating stillness like stagnation. It's not. Stillness is where your vision sharpens. Stillness is where your discipline deepens. Stillness is where chaos loses its power. Stillness isn't weakness. It's the ultimate provocation. Because nothing frustrates chaos like someone who refuses to be moved. When you wait longer, you outlast the undisciplined. When you see deeper, you outthink the impulsive. When you strike smarter, you dominate with precision. That's how you win quietly. That's how you master peace in motion. That's how you become untouchable. You have to understand, the one who waits longest controls the outcome. Because time bends to those who know how to use it. The impatient burn out chasing everything. The disciplined conquer by choosing when. So train your patience like a muscle. Strengthen it through silence. Sharpen it through repetition. Every delay, every pause, every setback, use it. Use it to refine your focus, reinforce your calm, Rebuild your center. That's the real work. That's what separates mastery from mediocrity. Remember, you don't grow by reacting faster. You grow by responding wiser. You don't need to move first. You just need to move last, and move right. Patience is your shield. Patience is your weapon. Patience is your edge. Because the undisciplined can't wait, and the one who can wait always wins. You have a choice. Be ruled by impulse, or led by wisdom. Be loud and scattered, or still and strategic. The wise don't rush. They read the room. They trust time. They let silence speak. Wait longer. See deeper. Strike smarter. That's the mantra of mastery. You've learned how to be patient. Now it's time to learn how to turn patience into power. Chapter 8. The emotionally strong don't chase validation. The moment you need approval, you lose power. The second you start performing for applause, you stop leading your own life. Because the need for validation isn't ambition, it's dependency dressed as drive. You have to hear this. The need for approval is emotional slavery. You can't lead when you're addicted to being liked. You can't grow when your worth depends on being seen. And you can't be free when every move you make is about earning permission. You don't need their permission to rise. That's the key. Every time you chase validation, you give away ownership of your peace. You hand over your confidence to the opinions of people who don't even know who they are. And when you do that, you stop living, you start performing. Most people don't live. They perform. They wear masks. They adjust, they shrink, they bend just to be accepted by people who are just as insecure as they are. It's not about connection. It's about control. And that's the trap. Validation feels good for a moment. Feels like safety. Feels like belonging. But underneath, it's a leash. A silent chain around your self-worth. Because if someone else can give it to you, they can take it away. That's not power. That's prison. Emotional strength begins when you stop seeking permission to be yourself. It begins when you understand that not everyone will like you, and that's not a problem. That's freedom. You have a choice. You can chase applause, or you can chase truth. You can live for approval, or you can live for purpose. You can follow the crowd, or you can lead yourself. But you can't do both. That's the choice every strong person has made. To stop chasing validation and start cultivating internal value. Listen, validation isn't just about social media likes or praise. It's about how you move through life. It's how you adjust your tone to fit in. It's how you hesitate to speak your truth because you fear judgment. It's how you change your goals to match their comfort zone. That's not humility, that's insecurity in disguise. Real humility is knowing your worth and not needing to prove it. Real confidence is silent. It doesn't need witnesses. You don't need their permission. You need your conviction. Emotional freedom starts when your self-worth becomes internal, not borrowed. When you stop waiting for someone else to label you enough. When you realize that validation from others is a bonus, not your foundation. You have to build your foundation from within. Brick by brick. Discipline by discipline. Standard by standard. Because confidence doesn't come from being praised, it comes from being consistent. Confidence is the quiet knowledge that you've done the work. That's the difference between validation seekers and self-validated people. Validation seekers burn out. They bend, they chase, they lose themselves trying to be everything to everyone. But self-validated people endure. They don't need noise to move. They don't need recognition to rise. They're driven by something deeper. Self-respect. Discipline gives you confidence. Confidence gives you peace. That's the equation. And peace, real peace, is what every validation chaser is secretly looking for. They think it comes from praise. They think it comes from followers. But peace doesn't come from attention. Peace comes from alignment. When your actions match your values. When your words match your truth. When your focus is internal, not external. That's when you stop needing validation. You have to make a decision, right now, to stop letting other people define your worth. You're not what they say about you. You're not their compliments. You're not their criticisms. You're not the version of you they imagine in their heads. You are what you repeatedly do when no one's watching. You are what you build in silence. You are the discipline you uphold when there's no applause. That's real worth. That's real power. Every time you crave validation, stop and ask yourself, from who? Whose opinion are you chasing? Whose approval are you waiting for? And why do they matter more than your own voice? The truth is, most people who judge you haven't mastered themselves. They project their insecurity onto your confidence. They confuse your strength for arrogance. And they'll only cheer for you until you surpass them. That's why you can't depend on them. You can't build your identity around other people's comfort. It's not about emotion. It's about execution. It's not about being liked. It's about being aligned. You don't owe the world your likability. You owe yourself your integrity. When you build from within, the noise outside loses power. When you validate yourself, rejection stops hurting. When you trust your path, judgment becomes irrelevant. Because here's the truth. The people who once doubted you will come around when they see your discipline. They won't respect your words. They'll respect your consistency. And that's what you should be chasing. Not their approval, but your evolution. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to become it. You don't need to explain yourself. You just need to show it. You don't need to fight for attention. You just need to earn your own respect. That's what emotional strength looks like. A calm confidence that doesn't need applause to know its value. You have a choice. You can keep performing for people who will forget you tomorrow. Or you can start building a version of yourself that even you can't ignore. Stop trying to be liked. Start trying to be legendary. Stop chasing compliments. Start chasing consistency. Stop waiting for validation. Start walking in conviction. You'll find that when you stop chasing validation, you attract respect. Because real strength doesn't beg, it commands. Real confidence doesn't ask, it acts. Real peace doesn't shout, it stands. That's the transformation. When your approval comes from within, no rejection can break you. When your standards are set by discipline, no opinion can shake you. And when your peace is internal, no chaos can reach you. You don't need their permission to rise. You just need your patience, your principles, and your persistence. Because validation fades, but self-respect compounds. So stop performing. Stop chasing. Stop begging the world to see you. Just do the work. Let your actions be the loudest thing about you. When you act from principle, you don't need applause. When you act from purpose, you don't need permission. When you act from peace, you don't need proof. That's how you break free. That's how you lead yourself. That's how you rise. Quietly, consistently, unshakably. You mastered the art of not needing them. Now it's time to master the art of leading yourself. Chapter 9. Calm is the new power. Power isn't noise. It's presence. The calmest person in the room controls the room. You've seen it before. One person walks in shouting, overcompensating, trying to prove something. Another walks in quietly, and every head turns. Why? Because true power doesn't need volume. It radiates. It commands. It doesn't beg. Power isn't loud. It's unbothered. That's the key. Real strength isn't about who can yell the loudest. It's about who can stay centered when everything around them starts falling apart. Because anyone can be confident when things are calm. But when the storm hits, that's when your real discipline shows. You have a choice. You can react like everyone else, or you can rise above it. You can let emotion lead, or you can let composure command. That's the difference between noise and presence, between ego and mastery, between amateurs and leaders. The world glorifies speed. It glorifies reaction. It glorifies being the first to respond, the first to speak, the first to move. But real power comes from stillness, from watching longer, listening deeper, and striking smarter. The calmest person in the room always sees what chaos hides. Because chaos blinds. Emotion blinds. When you're triggered, you stop seeing clearly. You react instead of respond. You attack instead of assess. And every time you do, you give away your power. That's what emotional mastery really means. Reading chaos without joining it. It means knowing that not every fire deserves your attention. Not every insult deserves your energy. Not every crisis needs your reaction. You don't need to respond to everything. You don't need to explain yourself to everyone. You don't need to match anyone's chaos just to prove you care. You have to be the calm in the storm, not the storm itself. That's how you win. See, calm doesn't mean passive. It means precise. It means you act when it matters, not when emotion demands it. You move with intention, not impulse. Because impulse destroys progress, and patience turns time into leverage. Calm is leverage. When you're calm, you see everything others miss. You see the patterns behind the noise. You see the weakness behind the aggression. You see the fear behind the performance. That's the advantage. The calm person doesn't get pulled into reaction. They stay anchored. And that anchor is everything when everyone else is drifting. Emotional strength isn't about never feeling. It's about never being led by feeling. It's not about suppressing emotion. It's about mastering it. You can feel anger and still stay in control. You can feel fear and still move with purpose. You can feel frustration and still respond with discipline. That's mastery. That's composure. That's real power. Because panic is contagious. But so is calm. The one who stays composed sets the emotional tone for everyone else. You've seen it. One calm leader can stabilize an entire team. One grounded parent can reset a whole household. One centered person can silence a room full of noise. Presence beats panic. Every time. When everyone else rushes, you pause. When everyone else overreacts, you analyze. When everyone else complains, you calculate. That's how you separate yourself. That's how you win wars without ever raising your voice. Because stillness outlasts speed. Anyone can sprint. Few can endure. You don't win by burning out first. You win by standing tall the longest. Power is endurance disguised as ease. It's not about intensity. It's about longevity. It's about conserving your energy for when it matters most. The calm person outlasts the loud one. Always. You've got to train your mind to pause before you react, to breathe before you speak, to think before you strike. That's not hesitation, that's strategy. When you rush, you miss details. When you rage, you miss patterns. When you're emotional, you're blind. But when you're calm, you see everything. You see motives. You see timing. You see opportunity. You see weakness in others' reactions, and you use it. Calm turns chaos into clarity. It's your weapon in a world addicted to noise. You don't need to prove your power. You need to preserve it. You don't need to win every argument. You need to stay centered enough to win the long game. Because noise fades, emotion fades, but composure endures. You have to decide what kind of power you want, temporary or timeless, loud or lasting, showy or steady. Anyone can appear powerful for a moment. Few can remain powerful under pressure. And that's the real test. Not how you act when you're in control, but how you respond when you're not. Calm isn't inaction. It's intelligence. It's strategy. It's control. It's the awareness that energy spent reacting is energy lost for creating. Stop wasting your focus on what doesn't matter. Stop fighting battles that don't deserve you. Stop giving emotional access to people who haven't earned it. You don't owe anyone your reaction. You owe yourself your peace. Because peace is what gives you precision. Precision is what gives you power. You have a choice, and you have to make it daily. Will you lead with reaction or respond with control? Will you chase attention or hold presence? Will you burn out for recognition or stand tall in silence? Power isn't noise, it's presence. Power isn't anger, it's awareness. Power isn't reaction, it's restraint. You don't need to match energy. You need to master yours. You don't need to compete for control. You need to become control. That's what calm does. It puts you back in command. It makes you untouchable. Because when you can't be provoked, you can't be manipulated. And when you can't be manipulated, you can't be defeated. That's the truth. The most dangerous person in the room isn't the loudest. It's the calmest. The one who sees everything and says nothing. The one who waits. The one who observes. The one who acts when the time is right, not when the crowd expects. Stillness isn't weakness. It's power disguised as patience. It's control hidden inside calm. It's the quiet confidence that says, I don't need to prove I'm in charge. I already am. So stay grounded. Stay measured. Stay calm. Because calm is your weapon. Calm is your edge. Calm is your power. You mastered the art of patience. Now it's time to master the power of silence, the space where wisdom speaks and ego disappears. Chapter 10. Master yourself. Master everything. Master yourself, and you master everything. That's the truth most people never face. They spend their lives trying to control situations, control outcomes, control other people, but they never control themselves. They chase control on the outside because they have none on the inside. You have a choice. You can keep reacting to life, or you can start leading it. You can stay ruled by impulse, or you can rise through intention. That's the key. Emotional mastery is self-leadership. You lead your thoughts. You lead your focus. You lead your reactions. Because if you don't lead them, they'll lead you. You've already seen it. People break down because they can't master what's inside. They crumble under pressure. They explode over small things. They sabotage opportunities because their emotions still sit in the driver's seat. That's not mastery. That's chaos pretending to be passion. That's insecurity pretending to be strength. That's noise pretending to be purpose. Mastery begins when you take full responsibility for your inner world. When you stop saying, "They made me angry. They made me react. They made me feel small." No, they didn't. You allowed it. You participated. You gave them the keys to your peace. Emotional mastery means taking those keys back. It means saying, I am the cause, not the consequence. Because that's the truth. You are the cause of your state. You are the source of your stability. And once you accept that, no one can shake you again. The ultimate power isn't external. It's internal. It's not about controlling circumstances. It's about controlling your center. When your emotions serve your mission, nothing can move you. Not rejection, not failure, not loss, not praise. Nothing. You become immovable. You become steady. You become dangerous, because now your calm is not dependent on comfort. That's mastery. And it's rare. Because most people don't want mastery. They want control. They want everything around them to behave so they don't have to evolve. They want peace without the discipline that builds it. They want freedom without the self-control that sustains it. But you can't have that. You can't command the world until you command yourself. You can't influence others until you influence your own reactions. You can't lead if you're still led by impulse. The world doesn't need more reactors. It needs masters. It needs calm. It needs people who can think when everyone else panics. It needs men and women who stay steady when the noise rises. That's what mastery looks like. Steadiness under fire. Grace under stress. Power without noise. Think about it. The greatest leaders you've ever seen, they don't chase emotion, they channel it. They don't run from pressure, they regulate under it. They don't panic in chaos, they see patterns others miss. Because they've done the inner work. They've built emotional discipline the same way an athlete builds muscle. Repetition, awareness, correction, control. Every time you feel the pull to react, that's your training moment. Every time someone provokes you, that's your test. Every time life gets uncomfortable, that's your classroom. That's how you build the muscle. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop escaping discomfort and start studying it. You stop letting feelings decide your future. You don't need to fight emotion. You need to direct it. Anger isn't the enemy. Fear isn't the enemy. Sadness isn't the enemy. Undisciplined emotion is. Because emotion without mastery becomes destruction. But emotion under mastery becomes fuel. It becomes precision. It becomes power. That's what mastery gives you. Control without rigidity, power without panic, strength without shouting. You learn to be still when others are shaking. You learn to breathe when others are breaking. You learn to see clearly when everyone else is blinded by noise. And that calm, that centered presence, becomes your superpower. It's not about perfection. It's about consistency. You won't always get it right. You'll still feel things deeply. But mastery is about not being dragged by them anymore. You'll still feel anger, but you'll know what to do with it. You'll still feel fear, but you won't obey it. You'll still feel doubt, but you won't stop moving. That's what separates the disciplined from the emotional. That's what separates the master from the victim. You have to decide who you're going to be. Because every time you choose calm over chaos, you reinforce your power. Every time you choose patience over panic, you train your control. Every time you choose purpose over emotion, you strengthen your mastery. You have a choice. Every single day. Every conversation. Every challenge. Every moment of pressure is an invitation. Will you lead yourself, or will you lose yourself? Because mastery isn't a one-time decision. It's a daily discipline. It's built in the moments nobody sees. The mornings you don't quit. The nights you don't complain. The silence where you study your own reactions. You have to catch yourself mid-emotion and redirect. That's the work. You have to learn to sit in discomfort without reaching for escape. That's the work. You have to learn to stop personalizing every challenge and start using it as training. That's the work. Mastery isn't sexy. It's quiet. It's repetition. It's self-awareness followed by self-correction. And it's the foundation of every great life. Because when you master yourself, you master everything else. Your relationships change. Your decisions sharpen. Your energy stabilizes. You stop being tossed around by moods, opinions, and temporary emotions. You start to move differently. You walk with calm confidence. You speak with intention. You act with power. And people feel it. Because you've become anchored. You've become rare. You've become the kind of person who doesn't just survive pressure. You define it. That's the level you're aiming for. That's the kind of mastery this world needs. Not louder people, but deeper people. Not more reactors, but more regulators. Not people chasing control, but people embodying it. You don't need to fix the world. You need to master yourself. Because once you do, the world changes how it responds to you. That's emotional mastery. That's the discipline that changes everything. You don't need their permission. You don't need the perfect conditions. You need discipline. You need patience. You need ownership. Master yourself, and you master everything. Because everything begins within. And once you own your inner world, the outer world has no power over you. Control your emotions, and you control your destiny. That's the truth. That's the challenge. That's the path. You've learned the tools. You've built the awareness. Now it's time to apply it. Daily, deliberately, relentlessly. You mastered calm. Now live from it. Because the final evolution of emotional mastery isn't peace for a moment. It's peace as your identity. This is where it all leads. This is where control becomes freedom. This is where you stop reacting and start ruling. Master yourself. Master everything. The rest will follow. You've learned the truth. Emotional mastery is not a soft skill. It's survival. The weak explode. The strong observe. The undisciplined react. The master responds. You have a choice every single day to be ruled by impulse or guided by intention. When you control your emotions, you control your energy. When you control your energy, you control your outcomes. And that's how you change your life. Not through luck, not through others, but through yourself. So from this day forward, stop being a victim of your feelings. Stop letting temporary emotions make permanent decisions. Command your state. Lead your thoughts. Guard your peace. Because the moment you master your emotions, you master everything.